Well, as I mentioned last time, we're putting the framework together for the body of an 11-passenger Yellowstone Park stagecoach, along with the 8-passenger that I've already started as well. I have the 8-passenger cut out, and I'm now in the process of cutting out the body pieces for the 11-passenger. And the last time I finished an 11-passenger stagecoach was about 11, 12 years ago, back there somewhere. So I have to try to remember just what the steps were when I went through this process. But the next step I'm going to take here is these side panels that go to these main frame that gives the whole body some rigidity, and match that to the pattern of an old coach body that I have. So these are the vertical side braces that's going to go on these main frames. And they're going to go on the inside flat portion about like so. So this is going to give me the contour shape for the drop, or what I call the boat. But before I do that, there's two joints that have to be incorporated on both ends. And while this is still flat and square, it's easier to jig it up and cut those joints before I actually do the contouring to these frames. And there's two different styles that these could be. I have one style that I did on the 8-passenger, but I see on my 11 passengers, there's a couple different options. On the rear cross member, it has to be notched in for a joint like so. And this rear cross piece is a little more complicated to build, but it's this joint here that I'm most concerned about right now. So before I actually put this drop curve into it, I'd like to set up with my router to cut this joint while it is still flat, and I can put a jig on here to route this out. This is only about 1/4 inch deep, but it needs to be a strong 2 1/8 by about 3 1/2. On the front end that holds the driver's box, there is a lap joint, and in this case, the lap of the cross frame going across the front is underneath and the main frame lap is on top. But it's not that way on this other pattern that I have. On the front end of this one that I've been using for patterns, you can see that the lap on the main frame is on the bottom and the cross frame is on top. And I did bring both original old frames that I'm actually going to take the ironwork off of and brought those over, and these seem to indicate that the lap on the main frame is on top, similar as it is on my 8-passenger. Then on the rear joint of this old frame that I'm using as patterns as well, this face here with the joint face is square with each other. However, this joint on the 8-passenger that I built years ago, that joint is not square. This face here is cut at an angle. So I did bring both of these old frameworks over here, and these are kind of backwards. This is the right side and this one is the left side. But the left side rear of this is broken. So if I take this ironwork off, I think it will allow me to see what the joint work was done on the main frame before the feet for the rear body curve is installed. So I'd like to take this apart and see if this shows me if this is a square joint or if it is a tapered joint. And it really has to do with this back panel that comes up and follows this curved framework. This is the main frame, and this is where the back of the coach body comes up, and it's sandwiched between these two heavy irons. So whether this panel here comes down with a square end, if it does, then this has to be a tapered joint. But if it comes down and can be tapered, then this back joint here can be a square joint. So it's not a big deal either way. But I'm going to take these irons off and see if this will show what this frame was. And all of this really brings to the surface that you can never say never and you can never say always. These are different coaches that were all made by Abbott and Downing over a span of years. I don't know what that was. This coach here has a 20,000 serial number. The undercarriage that I'm putting the iron on is a 26,000 serial number. When I built the woodwork for that 8-passenger, I don't remember the coach number that pattern came from, but same company, and you can see the different styles of joint work. So to say, well, they were always done this way is a dangerous stand to take, because even within the same manufacturer, you can start to see the differences in these coaches. Well, getting this one apart, I don't know if this is going to be able to be picked up with this camera, but it does have an angled cut here on the end. It's not square with this face. So it is similar to the 8-passenger. So this is the style of joint I'm going to try to cut. From this square face, this is 20 degrees, and you can see it left just a little triangle sliver on this portion that was not jointed down. And we have a little stair step here. So when that cross frame comes in, you can see the little shoulder here. And this is going to line up with this little wedge here, because this is at a taper as well. So this is the effect that I want to have. So when this back panel comes in, this is actually a square corner right here, but this comes up at a 20 degrees. So this has to be cut at a 20 degrees as well. So if I remember correctly in the past, when I cut this little angled joint on the end of this, I think I used my radial arm saw, but I've got that stored away. So I've been kind of mulling over how I'm going to do that, and I monkey rigged this little jig together here to where I think maybe I can do it with a straight bit and my router. I took just a piece of 1/2-inch plywood, and then I put a perimeter border around it. My plate on my router is 6 inches, so this will just slide within this, and I have stops on each side that should allow me to go across the full face of my frame. And then I have this frame mounted to 2 pieces that I have clamped to my main frame, and these are fastened to my plate, and I cut these at 20 degrees, so that's going to hold my router at the 20-degree angle. So right now my bit comes in just almost wanting to touch my framework, and if I just gradually bring that in a plunge type setting, I should be able to come in to where I have the proper width. So my corner is right here, and the bottom of my bevel is right there. And what I want is right here is a depth of 3/8 of an inch, because that's going to be the depth of my, or the thickness of my rear panel. So I think I'm pretty close there. So I guess the real test, let's go see what we have. Yeah, that's that little tapered edge that we want. I think that'll work just pretty fine. And if I can sneak it by the second time, we'll have that joint cut. Maybe the first time was just beginner's luck, huh? We got the nice little tapered point there. I did bark it up just a fuzz right there. That joint will fill that in. But there's our 20 degrees. Well, it's a lot of fiddling for just a little odd joint on the back, but this joint is in the transition of that back panel on the coach, which is the backrest for the rear seat. The front cross member with just a lap joint should be far more simple. Then I can start to put the shape into these main frames next week. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.